Hi students, today we're doing our lesson on 2.1, graphing linear equations. We've done the first part of this in class, and then, so I'm going to go over that again, and then you can kind of skip ahead if you remember that stuff and go towards the second half of the video. So we're going to graph linear equations using tables of values. So remember, graphing linear equations is we're talking about graphing lines today, so straight lines. And so we're going to be given an equation and then the plug in x values to get an output value to get our ordered pair of the xy value. So example number 1 here, we want to graph the equation y equals negative 2x plus 1. So step 1 is to make a table of values. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in here that we're going to use negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. And then we'll fill in for our x value here. And instead of putting an x there, I'm going to plug my x value in from my table, negative 2. So I go through and I solve those to get a y value here. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, plus 1 gives me a 5. So I have filled out my table here. I have taken all my x values from this column here, plugged it in for those x values in my equation, used my order of operations, which is multiplication first, then the addition of 1 there, and got my y values or my output values in that row or that column. Okay, so next we want to write our ordered pairs so we can plot them. So remember, an ordered pair is the parentheses and then you put your x value first, which in this row here is negative 2, and our y value is positive 5. So we can do that for all of our rows. So here are all of our ordered pairs from our table of values, and then we can plot them. Remember, this is the y-axis here, this one is the x-axis. To go negative 2, 5, go to the left 2 spaces, and then up 5 spaces. And I get a point right there. Then we can go ahead and graph all the rest of the points. So I've graphed the rest of the points there. Notice that they are in a straight line. I connect them with a line, draw a line through that point. Remember, our lines have arrows on the end, and that was our step 3 of drawing a line through a point, and that's how we graph a line from a table. So a key idea here, we also are going to be graphing horizontal lines right here and vertical lines. Now, we talked about in class a little bit, if you can remember, how y equals when you get like y equal to a number and there's no x values, that's when you're going to get that horizontal line. And when you get x equals a number with no y value, that's when you get a vertical line. So for example here, I like to think about this as y equals negative 3, and we like to look at our graph and figure out, okay, where is a y value of negative 3? Well, I know that I have a y value of negative 3 right there. Then we talked about we could do where any values of y equal negative 3. Well, y could equal negative 3 right here. It could equal negative 3 right here. Anywhere along here is where we have y values of negative 3. It doesn't matter what the x value is because there's no x value in that equation of y equals negative 3. So I draw a line through here, put arrows on the end. So therefore, y equals negative 3 is a horizontal line where that y value is negative 3. Graph here for B, x equals 2, same sort of concept. So go through, figure out where the x value is 2. Most of you are probably thinking right here. That's where our x value is 2. But remember, this also has an x value of 2. This one has an x value of 2. Anywhere along this line has an x value of 2 because it doesn't matter what the y value is because there's no y in our equation. So I connect these points, I draw my line, and notice that we have a vertical line here at x equals 2. So let's do another example here. So go ahead, pause the video, work through this equation. We're going to use our -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2 for those x values and plug it in to our equation 1/2 x. So 1/2 x plus 2, and figure out what you get for your y value. So here is our filled in table. I took those x values, plugged them in where the x should be in our equation, and I work through order of operations and do that multiplication first, then the plus 2, and I get my y values on the side there. Now the ordered pairs I'm going to use to graph here, it will be -2, 1, -1, 1.5, 0, 2, 1 and 2.5, and then 2 and 3. So I'm taking those x values that I picked in the first column with the y values I found in the second column. So I come over here to my graph and I look, and I'm going to graph -2, +1 will be right there, -1 and 1.5, so we're going up 1 and then like a half, which is right there, 0, 2, 1, 2.5, and 2 and 3. So we notice that those go in a straight line. I connect them, I put arrows on the end, and I have the graph of my line. Next example. The wind speed y in miles per hour of a tropical storm is y equals 2x plus 66, where x is the number of hours after the storm enters the Gulf of Mexico. Graph the equation, when does the storm become a hurricane? Okay, so it says over here a tropical storm becomes a hurricane when wind speeds are at least 74 miles per hour. So we're going to look at that. So we're going to fill out our table here. This is our equation. We have y is equal to 2x plus 66. Now, our x values here said the x value is the number of hours after the storm enters the Gulf of Mexico. Think about this. Can time be negative? Hopefully you're shaking your head no, or that you know no, time can't be negative. So we're not going to use our -2, -1 because time can't be negative. So we're going to start here at 0. So this would be 0 hours after the storm enters, 1 hour after, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then 4 hours after the storm enters the Gulf of Mexico. So we sort of have to look, since this is a word problem, we have to look at what our x values actually mean. So we can go ahead and fill out the rest of the table now. We can do y equals 2 times 0 plus 66, which we know gives us an answer of 66. So go ahead, pause the video, fill out the rest of the table. All right, so we have our table filled out now. We can write down all of our ordered pairs, 0 and 66. We can write down the rest of them here. So we have the rest of our ordered pairs there so that we can graph. Now this graph looks a little different. This is still our y-axis, this is still our x-axis, but this time 0, 0 is right here. So this point right here is 0, 0. So we just have quadrant 1, which is in the top right of our graph. So we start there and go 0. And now there's not 66 lines. Like if we went up 1, 2, 3, 4, we're not going to be able to count all the way up to 66. So we need to figure out a way to write our graph here or scale our graph so that we can go all the way up to 74. So something we can do here is we can put a little break in the graph right here. So we kind of put this little symbol where it's a little squiggle line, showing that we're breaking the graph so that we're actually going to start then. We can start up at 66. So we're going to put 66 right here. And now we can work our way up. So the next one we'll say is 67, then it's 68, then it would be 69, 70 would be this one, 71 there, 72 will be here, 73 is that one, and 74 is that top one. Okay, so we have our graph here, and now we can plot these points at 0 and 66. I get that point right there. 1 here and 68. And we can plot the rest of these all the way up. So we have all of our points here. We've graphed them. We can now connect them with our line here, put that arrow there. And then the last question says, when does the storm become a hurricane? Well, we know from this part over here that it says it becomes a hurricane at least 74 miles per hour. So our output value, our Y value, that was at 74, it becomes a hurricane after 4 hours. All right, example number 4, our last example here. This time we're given the equation negative 4x plus 2y equals 8. And the first thing we have to do here is solve for y. So using our skills from last chapter of literal equations, of getting that y value by itself. So the first thing we want to do is move the 4x. So I'm going to add 4x to the other side. And then I get 2y is equal to 8 plus 4x. I also have to divide by 2, and remember we divide everything by 2. Those 2's cancel, and I get, we'll put this down here, y equals 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4x divided by 2 then becomes 2x. So our equation that we're using is y equals 4 plus 2x. So I'm going to put that right here. Okay, now it's not a word problem or anything, so we're just going to use our regular -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And we can go ahead and fill out our graph, or fill out our table. So I filled out the table. I put those x values in place of where the x is. Remember, you still want to do the multiplication first before that addition of 4, even though it's in the opposite order here. So for that first row, we're going to do 2 times -2 first, which is -4, plus 4, which will give us a 0. So we can go ahead and do the rest of those. So I got all my y values here. I made them into ordered pairs right there for all my x and y values. And now I come over to my graph to graph them. -2, I'm at 0. At -1, I'm at 2. 0, I'm at 4. 1, I'm at 6. And 2, I'm at 8. I have my straight line. I connect them with a line that goes through all the points, draw the arrows on both sides, and that's my graph of my line. Rewatch any part if you still have questions on anything. Remember, you can pause the video at any point, and you should have been taking notes on your iPad as well.